What's going on, everybody? Respawn Gentleman here. So today I'm going to show you one of the best companion builds you can do with the Gloombringer. Let's get right to it. So if you're not familiar, the Gloombringer class is a combination of the Clawbringer and the Graveborn. Now it doesn't matter which one you have as primary, it's just these two combination. This is the skills you want to do. So let's start off with action skills. You definitely want to have Reaper of Bones because of the constantly decreasing health with a skill we're going to grab later. This is going to make your companions more powerful the lower your health gets. So this is going to be super important to have. Now for the Clawbringer skills, you want to go ahead and max out Oath of Fire because you're not going to be doing any melee damage really at all. So Oath of Thunder is useless. And you don't want a high ward because you want your health to go down and be low on health so your companions do more damage. So having a higher ward is not going to help. So max out Oath of Fire. You definitely want to grab Dragon Aura and max that out because it's going to do a lot more elemental damage, and that's basically all you're going to be doing is tons and tons and tons of elemental damage. Next, you want to also max out Dedication because this will make your action skill cooldown even faster, which means you get to use Reaper of Bones even more often, which will in turn make your companions more powerful more often. So definitely grab this one. And you also want to grab Firebolt as well as Storm Breath for some extra elemental attacks from the Wyvern Companion, which is super helpful. Trust me on that. And then put 1 point into Friend of Flame because that extra 20% damage for your Wyvern Companion will be super helpful. So just put 1 single point into Friend of Flame. Now on the Graveborn side, you want to max out the Essence Drain skill because you want your spell cooldown rate to be as high as possible so that way you can use your spells as much as you can. Then you also want to max out Faithful Thralls because you're going to be having anywhere from 8 to 14 companions out at one time constantly, which is a huge boost. So you definitely want this out there for sure. Next, you definitely want Sanguine Sacrament. Yes, I know this doesn't necessarily help your companions, but it does keep you alive longer. So using this is really good. Then you also want to put 3 points into Dark Pact because you're going to be doing a lot of dark magic damage as well with this. So increasing your dark magic damage will be fantastic for you. Next, you want to max out Harvest because your companions will do bonus dark magic damage with every kill you get, but you're going to be getting a ton. So this will definitely help, especially in combination with Dark Pact. Next, you want to go ahead and max out Dark Hydra because those Hydra companions that spawn are fantastic and they just do tons of dark magic damage. And you definitely want these out so you can have 3 of them at a time. You really want to max this one out. You also want to go ahead and max out Ascension because whenever you get a kill, it increases your spell damage, which I'm going to show you why that's super important. You want high amounts of spell damage with this build because it's going to make your companions do tons of damage. So this one is really good to max out. So next you want to grab Hellish Blast. So basically your Demi-Lich companion will cast his Hellish Blast a couple of times. So rather than it just being once, it'll do it a couple times, especially since you're doing the spell more often. This is going to be really great to have. So the next one you want to grab is Lord of Edges. Now this one increases your damage dealt, but lower your health amount is. And if you're not familiar, damage dealt is actually an overall damage, which that is what your companions take as well. So because you're getting increased damage dealt for everything, your companions are as well. So the lower your health, the more damage they're going to do. That's why Reaper of Bones is super important because you're constantly healing your health. So as you're playing, your companions are getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and this is fantastic. And then you absolutely must have the capstone skill Morheim's Blessing because every time you cast a spell, it'll automatically activate all of your kill skills, and you really need that because the bonuses that you get from those kill skills will make your companions ridiculously strong, and you will just mow through bosses super easily. Now for the gear that I'm wearing for this build, there's probably some better things you can find, but this is just what I currently have at the moment. But you want to focus on companion damage, spell damage, and anything that kind of reduces your action skill and spell cooldown. So you want those to be as quick as possible. So what I have right here, I've got the Ali's Promise Ring of the Cataclysm. This one increases my companion damage by 17.1%. And the other thing on here that I like the most is the Dark Magic Efficiency. And it says while your action skill is ready, effects are increased by 25%. So before you use your action skill, it kind of does benefit from that. The other ring I have is Allies Annalist of the Iron Wolf. This one again increases my companion damage by 17.1%. It also increases my companion critical hit chance and the Dark Magic Efficiency. So this is kind of what I have for the rings. As far as the class item goes, I have the Inquisitor's Warped Paradigm of Vivid Futures. Now, this one's great because this one gives me plus 30% to my Clawbringer power and plus 15% to my Graveborn power. It also gives me plus 25% to my spell damage, which is super huge. And then what's absolutely fantastic is at the bottom it says spell damage and melee damage are increased by 50% of your increased ability damage. So your spell damage is going to be even higher, which is again going to help your companions, and I'll explain that in just a minute as well. So for the shield, I have this Chaotic Master rune. Now this one, it increases my companion damage by 25%. So that's why this one is kind of really fantastic. If you find ones that increase your spell damage or anything else like that, that's perfectly fine too, but this is the one that I'm personally using. For the amulet, I'm using the Undying Theurge because this thing is absolutely amazing. It increases my Graveborn power by plus 25%, which is fantastic. It also gives me a plus 20% dark magic efficiency and status effect chance. Since I'm going to be doing a ton of elemental damage, you really want that status effect on theirs too. So that really helps. But the main thing that this is really great for is its special ability at the bottom. It says whenever you cast a spell, reduce your remaining action skill cooldown by 20%. And while your action skill is on cooldown, spell damage is increased by 30%. So basically, whenever you cast your spell, the action skill cooldown will happen faster. So that's fantastic. But the great thing is that because when your action skill is on cooldown, which is going to be a lot, you're going to be doing increased spell damage, which will be insane for your companions. Now for my melee weapon, I chose the Burgeoning Snake Stick of the Butcher. The main reason for this one is because on a melee attack, it spawns a Hydra companion, although I don't really use melee a lot, but that's a bonus feature if you want to do that. A big thing for this one is the enchantment. It says on spellcast, increase damage dealt by 15%, which because it's damage dealt, that means it's going to apply to my companions as well. So this is fantastic to have. Now for the weapons, you can have more than this, but I have two companion weapons and then plus one regular weapon for times where companions just won't cut it, which there are a couple that I'll go over in just a minute. But I have an Empowering Fear Knot of the Crafter. Basically, this one, it says thrown weapon explodes on impact and morphs into a Hydra companion, shooting at enemies for a duration. So that's fantastic. It also has on action skill start, increased spell damage by 40%, which is going to be fantastic for my companions. I also have this Cheap Shot of the Warrior Shotgun. Now this one, it says when it's thrown and explodes on impact, it morphs into a multi-headed Hydra companion. And if you can find the multi-headed Hydra companion ones, those are actually better than the single Hydras. From what I've been able to find, they seem to do more damage than the single-headed Hydras, but at least the Hydra is kind of perfect for this build. There's other things you can use like pixies, but Hydras are kind of key for this one because pixies don't proc the Faithful Thrall's skill. Now for the spell, you definitely want a Buffmeister. Specifically, you want one that has the Zap skill at the bottom because that increases your spell damage. And that is what you want. You want increased spell damage and you want this Buffmeister because every time you cast that spell, your companions are going to be doing more damage. It's all about the damage. Now let me kind of get into explaining why all of these things will work the way they do. So on the screen here, you can see the companion damage scaling spreadsheet that was made. This is made in combination between Catchins and Thick Fillet. I'll have a link for this in the description below if you want to go check it out. This is a fantastic resource, especially if you're just trying out different builds and what you want to do, especially companion related. So definitely check this out. But right here, kind of the reason why I chose the weapons that I did was because you can see here that Faithful Thralls, for example, only happens with Hydras and Flying Guns. It does not apply to Pixies at all. So that's why I don't have any Pixie Guns, because I want that Faithful Thralls to proc as much as possible. I don't like using Flying Guns because they don't really proc with the spell damage, and I'm doing a ton of spell damage as it is. So that's why I went with the Hydras. Now, the best way to get the Hydras is you really want to have either a Fragmented Rain SMG, as you can see on the screen here, because it does increase the companion damage with spell damage. You also want to grab a crossbow style pistol because your Hydras will benefit from that spell damage. And then you also want to grab a shotgun that has pellets because that will also get increases to your spell damage for your Hydras. So that's kind of what you're looking for. If you have the other styles, this build does not kind of really work for gun damage per se. But another thing is that all these hydras also benefit from the companion damage increases that we have. So you're going to be doing a ton of damage because of your spells and companion damage and faithful thralls and all the things. So those are the kind of the ones you want to grab. Now, the easiest way to get those weapons is to do it through the Chaos Chamber and just farm the bunnies at the end. That's the best way that I've found to get those Furior weapons, so you can get kind of what you're looking for. Now, one thing I will say on this is that using this method will eat through your ammo like crazy. So before you go using this to farm bosses, make sure you stop at the vending machines to refill your ammo, because that's super important. Now here I am, this is actually at the LeChance boss fight. I'm doing this on Chaos level 20 just to show you how crazy this can be. So if you look at my skills again, let's go back to the skills. Actually, the inventory, my bad. You have on spell cast, you increase damage dealt, and on action skills start, we have increased spell damage. So what you want to do is you want to throw your Reaper of Bones and then cast your Buffmeister. So let's get down here. I'm going to switch to my Cryo one first because this does more damage than the lightning one. And the element can change, it doesn't really matter. But let's go here, let's cast Reaper of Bones, my Buffmeister, and now just watch. Now this doesn't like melt bosses like, you know, some one-shot builds that you can have, but you can see it's going through a level 20 Chaos LeChance pretty easily, and I'm just standing back here not doing anything at all. Like, I'm literally just shooting and throwing my weapon, and that's it. That's all I'm doing and going through LeChance. Now, if I get too low on this one, then I can switch to this gun, which is a little bit faster, and he's dead. There you go. So that's how quickly you can go through this. Let me show you a different boss to show you also just how crazy this can be. So this time I'm going to show you the Parasite boss. You can see at the bottom of the screen, I'm still Chaos level 20, and let's jump down here. And some of my skills are still active from the last fight I did, and so let's cast Reaper of Bones. And then my Buffmeister, and this time I'm only going to use my electric gun this time. And we'll see how quickly we can get through Parasite. Parasite's one of the easier bosses to get through. But look, his first health is already gone. Second one is about to be gone. Like, it's just going through bosses like crazy. And like I said, this is Chaos level 20. So you can do this and just destroy enemies and basically never die because of all the dark magic damage and healing that you're getting. Now again, the element does kind of help. Like if you have Cryo, it works a little bit better than anything else. Lightning does pretty decent. Acid or poison, I would kind of stay away from. I've noticed it doesn't really help all that much. And fire is, it's okay, you know, but definitely if you can find Cryo versions as well as electric versions, those are very, very great to have. Now, I will say this, that on a couple of bosses, this build can be kind of difficult. And those are going to be Drill. Whenever he's far away, like in the back of the map, the companions can't hit him. So you have to just stand there and wait until he comes closer. So that's kind of a problem with this build, is that it can't take things that are far away like that, which is super unfortunate, but it happens. So the Drill is not too bad because you just have to wait for him to come back, which he does. So there's that. The one that is the absolute hardest to do this with is the Dragon Lord. The reason for that is not the Dragon Lord himself, because he takes damage like nobody's business. He dies super fast. The problem is Bernadette. Whenever Bernadette spawns, the companions do not target or hit Bernadette at all, which is why I have that extra gun, so I can deal damage to Bernadette if I happen to come across that boss. Every other boss that you come across, this does not have any problems with, I think, except for the raid bosses, but they also have giant health pools, so there's that part of it too. But Bernadette is kind of the outlier in the fact that you can't really hit them with it, so it makes it kind of difficult. The other boss that this one is actually really hard for as well is Vorkanar. Now, the reason for this is that you can't hit Vorkanar's critical spots, and that's the only ones that really do massive damage. And also, because there's barely any mobs flying around, you don't get all of those kill skills as often as you do with all the other bosses. So it does make it hard to use for Vorkanar, but it is possible. It just takes a little bit longer than everybody else. But for the most part, this will just destroy bosses without very much trouble, and you probably won't even go to save your soul at all. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Wonderlands content, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also check out my community Discord where you can talk to me and others and find people online to play with as well. I'll have that linked in the description below if you want to check that out. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.